Scott Pilgrim versus the podcast, a podcast where we take down Scott Pilgrim. Now, we have not been successful so far, but this is it. This is the episode we're going to be talking about. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, Episode 2, A League of Their Own. And I'll tell you what, I hated that movie, and I hated this episode.
What the fuck?
Wow, that's controversial. It's crazy that we're trying to take down Scott Pilgrim.
How can you hate that movie? That's a great movie.
The show took him down right in front of our eyes.
So how it works
I'm
is
Justin.
The train moves. I'm Pete.
And there is no crying in podcasts, so I'm kidding.
It's a great movie.
It is a great movie. A League of Their Own is a great movie. Jury's out on episode 2, I guess, and we're going to get into it right now. So if you haven't already watched it on we're Judge, Jury, and Executioner. If you haven't watched it yet on Netflix, please do.
Alex, I believe the phrase is we're Judge, Judy, and Executioner.
Yeah,
that's right, yes. Because the two characters on that show are Judge Judy and the Executioner.
Yeah, he's right behind her desk.
Yeah. I'm tired of hearing about this death.
Yeah, and then da-da-da-da.
The wedding march plays. Chop the guy's neck in half. I know.
You're getting married to the executioner.
Well, anyway, in this episode, we're picking up on the insane, and I don't say that, I mean, that's a light way of saying it, a cliffhanger of the last episode, where Scott Pilgrim was killed by Matthew Patel. He continues to be dead.
We had to sweat it out the whole goddamn episode.
Yeah. So once again, we're getting some big changes here as Matthew Patel takes over the League of Evil Exes. We get to see Scott's funeral. Envy Adams shows up, sings I Will Remember You dance version, and everybody loves it.
What a banger.
We end with yet another cliffhanger at the end of the episode where Ramona either does dream or thinks she's dreaming that Scott is still alive. So there you go. Given the first episode was pretty much Scott Pilgrim, slightly remixed, but it was Scott Pilgrim. This is entirely fresh, entirely new. We have never seen this before. I wanted to get your bead on that. Maybe I won't do this for every episode, but I'm just very curious to see, given like everybody was championing the bit after the end of that last episode, how did you feel about episode 2, Pete?
I was upset because it was like, we're doing a funeral? Like, no, what? Well, I couldn't believe how long it took for us to get some kind of relief. And it was scary to be away from what we knew and love a little bit, because I was like, what's going on? If it would have started brand new, I think it would have been less like intrusive, because it felt a little like, hey, what? This isn't what, oh no, this is completely different, which is exciting and new. But it's not what I thought I was getting. So I felt a little uncertain, and I was worried about the old Scotty P.
I feel like, Pete, from the end of the first episode through the end of this episode, you have like big Will Ferrell, am I taking crazy pills meme going on?
Yeah.
And so that must have been a crazy.
I invented the key tie.
I think this is fantastic. I love it. I think the writing is so good. There's so many great jokes. I like that they've just taken our expectations, absolutely thrown them away, and they're still making a show that's awesome. But it's a kind of show that I think we never see where, like, it's like a video game if Mario died. Then you're like,
who wants to play that?
Well, you're not playing. It's all the characters around being like, now what do we do? Who's going to jump on this flagpole? Nobody? Just sits there? Okay. And that's awesome. We never, and even beyond the culture around Scott Pilgrim, like, we never get stories where there's a hole where the protagonist used to be. And that's what this is. And we get to see all the wild ways that gap is filled in by the exes, by everybody else. It's so fun.
I can't believe the change was in the casket. I laughed out loud.
I literally, when they were talking, I was like, oh, I hope the change is in there. That's so funny if the change is in there. Is it going to be the change in there? And then it was. It was.
I was caught by surprise by the change.
Do you want to be buried with your change, or your change instead of you?
I want people to put change in my coffin.
Well, I want
to be tipped. I want to be like a wishing well.
You know what we'll do is we'll put your coffin out on the street, and we'll put like a little sign there, and people just toss it and change as they go by.
Well, everyone should do a little trick, like busk a little bit with my pass the hat, as they traditionally say, and my open casket
So we have to bring change to your funeral, is what you're saying.
No. Here's what we're going to do. Is first of all, we're going to duct tape a flute to Justin's mouth, and when his death rattles come out, that'll blow through the flute and it'll make some music, and then people will be like, here's a couple of bucks.
Hey, if I haven't given a death rattle, don't have the funeral yet. Don't just wait. I might just be breathing weird. I might be fine. Don't start the funeral too early. Is all I'm saying.
Well, I wish we could honor your wishes, but I can't promise that.
We gotta. You can only get those things for so long. You know what I mean? You got to hurry up and funeral it.
I want to be podcasting for my death rattle for a lot of it. So make sure that happens.
So great. Glad to hear your thoughts.
What about you?
What about me?
Were you stressed?
No, curious, I think, is more the feeling that I had there in terms of like, what are we doing here? What is this? Because I still don't know exactly what this show is at this point, 2 episodes in. I'm curious.
That's the exciting part.
That is the exciting part. But like Pete, I'm similar in terms of I'm still reeling in terms of like, they told us it was one thing and it's not that. They told us it was this remix of the story. Clear at this point, it's 100% not that. It's an original story. It's a different story. It's going in a different direction. I understand they've talked a lot about how they wanted to give more time to Ramona and the evil exes. And I guess the way they've hit on that is excising Scott from the story.
Get him out of there. He's taken off. He's out of here.
He's taken off. He's left. That's what the title means.
But if he can't beat Patel, how is he going to go through the rest of them? I am so worried about how this is going to work.
Well, at this point, the evil exes don't even work that way. I think what this episode did. So the first episode was setting up the story, giving us like, okay, here's.
We got to get a battle through the exes, though, right?
This is how the anime works. This is how these characters are. We're resetting them up for people who have never seen them before, and then we're giving you this wild swerve. This episode, I feel like, answers a lot of questions that I don't think I ever actually had questions for, but I understand why they thought about them in the intervening years. Things like Matthew Patel immediately being like, great, I beat Scott, now I get to date Ramona again, right?
It's great.
And that's not
very fun.
What he gets to do at all, because, of course, Ramona is her own human being. That's not at the actual point. Plus, as we saw in the movie, as we read in the book, the eventual plan is like, she's ultimately going to go back to Gideon. So we do get an answer there of him explicitly saying, yeah, no, I set this up so he could fight through you. And then he gets to me and I beat him and I get Ramona back. And nobody likes that. So again, that's nothing that I ever thought about as a question. But if that's what this series is about, is answering all the lingering questions from Scott Pilgrim, I think that's an interesting way of going.
Well, definitely. And I think changing it up, like you're saying, like it's not about getting Ramona. That's like not how our stories should work anymore. It's about like Ramona has her own thing. And like I feel like Gideon might end up working with Scott to fight his way through, and Ramona to fight their way through the exes.
Well, if this is about answering questions, then I can't wait to see the episode about how the Punisher became part of the vegan police.
Thomas Jane. Thomas Jane was in the movie as the vegan police. We'll see if he shows up here. We got to see all of the exes very early. Again, I know there's no way we can separate ourselves from this, but one big question I had watching this episode, seeing all of the exes and the League, them interacting with each other, is like, what does a person who doesn't know anything about Scott Pilgrim think about what's going on right now?
Well, in this episode, I was like, ooh, you sort of need to have watched or read the books to know what is going on here, or I guess more why it's going on. Because otherwise, I feel like this is a pretty just like random assortment of scenes where you're like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Why is this guy, why does this dead guy matter so much?
Who is Envy Adams? Why and how did she date this loser Scott, and all of these other things? I agree with that. Again, it's hard to separate ourselves from that, but it was interesting seeing these characters in a different light. We can talk about the evil exes and kind of follow that thread, because that's a big thing that happens here. So we get to see they all get invitations to Gideon Graves' place. It turns out it's Matthew Patel who wants to take over the League.
Nice invitations, by the way.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
Invitations.
Yeah.
Did I get invited to a party at my own lair? says Gideon.
Yeah.
Great
And
joke.
we get to meet all of the evil exes over the course of this. Ultimately, Matthew Patel and Gideon Graves are the big fight in the episode, and Matthew Patel wins again 2 episodes in a
This guy
row.
is killing it.
Oh my gosh. Again, I think this is something where they're like, hey, we got rid of Matthew Patel so early. What if we gave him so much more room? And I don't know if that's a good decision yet necessarily, but it's definitely another big decision on the part of the show. The last thing he says, I think, is, this is my league now. I'm the main character. So,
I love that. I'm the main character. So funny. Great meta joke. But it's also like, if you're writing this, you're like, what if we had the biggest loser become the big winner? And so it has to be Matthew Patel out of all of them.
yeah. Go ahead, Pete.
It's also weird because I find myself like missing other versions of the joke while it was going on, like the demon hipster chicks kind of like
Roxy.
a song. Yeah, like that was fun. When it got to Lucas Lee's line was like, like, oh, I'm a huge fan. He's like, why wouldn't you be in the movie? And this one was like, of course you are, or something. And I was like, oh, I kind of missed that other one. I felt like that was funnier. But I also feel like that would be different if I hadn't seen these other versions,
Well, there's just to talk about the voices and characters a little bit. So first of all, we get to hear the twins, which is something that was completely missing for the movie. So that's fun. They are entirely new for this. We also get to see a little robot, which is something that they didn't have in the movie. They have robots in the graphic novels. So great to see that as well. Roxy.
Love the robot. Real quick on the robot, very funny. And then the joke, no plus ones, since his name is Robot 01. Banger.
Yeah, there you go. Roxy, like Pete was saying, looks a little different. She's got a whole demon mask thing going on. But Mae Whitman, we were talking about voice stuff a little bit the last episode. Mae Whitman is like a professional voice actor. So almost of all of the people in the show, I was like, yeah, she knows how to crush this. She can come in and do this in 3 seconds. We also get Brandon Routh is introduced as Vegan Todd. I thought that was very fun.
Awesome. Yeah, the Lee Todd stuff was also great.
The stick to the rivers and lakes you're used to.
Oh my God, come on.
That's the thing, is what I was working up towards is Chris Evans as Lucas Lee, live action, but also animation. He is crushing it.
Make
Always
him the
killing
main
it.
character.
Always killing it.
He really is, though. Like every single line, his delivery is so funny. It's also so funny that they put so much of him in here, because somebody asked a question. I swear I'm going to try to start and stop talking about the New York Comic Con panel, but they're like, what was it like working with Chris Evans again? They're like, oh, it's great. He came in and did like 14 lines. And I think he did plus 14 in this episode alone. And I was like, they were lying. He did more than this. So all of his stuff was great. I love the line about like, I don't even read the scripts anymore. I just make up my own dialogue. And then what is it? I think it's Roxy is like, that's why you say let's party so much. It's like, I don't think I said that. Let's party.
Yeah, man, it's so good. That's what I was saying. There's so many, like, there are not a ton of comedies on television or streaming or anything are as funny as this. It's crazy that this is this funny. And I feel like we're tough critics, and this is crushing it.
Yeah. We got this whole plot line. I also, just before we move on to other stuff, what did you guys think about the fight in this episode? I think that's probably a good thing to break down if we're going to get that every episode, is how did you feel about the Matthew Patel, Gideon Graves fight? Pete or Justin? Yeah, go ahead.
I thought it was, I really loved it. Last time we talked about how this show is doing a lot of like anime, sort of classic anime, the way the pausing and the way the dialogue comes in. I feel like they moved a little more modern in this episode, and the stuff from classic anime they brought in, especially in the fight, was just random stuff happening all the time. Like they play basketball for sort of no reason. Gideon gets stuck into a wire rig for literally no reason. There's trident back arms that come out of Matthew Patel. I was like, this is just wild ideas. And it was, but I loved it. You never knew it was going to come. It was super original, great, just reference points. And then we get this legal lawyer thing right at the end where that's when you know he's going to lose.
And he loses his underwear, which was a fun bit.
Yeah. Did you guys think, like, I spent the entire episode thinking, oh, Gideon Graves is going to win because he's the big bad guy. So they played
it again.
Yeah.
They really did. Yeah, they got me again.
Alex, Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on you.
I have a feeling
That's
they're
how
going to
it
fool
goes.
me at least 8 times over the course of the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also like the bit of like when they were in that fight montage. It was cool because it started a little bit low budget and then kind of kept amping up, which was really impressive. And then he like earlier he mentions the fact that he has like an animal shelter, and when they were crashing through rooms, one of them was an animal shelter, and I was just like, oh my God, love the attention to detail there.
That was great. Why don't we move on to the other storyline, which surprisingly was kind of like the B storyline of the episode, I felt like, which was Scott's funeral. So we pick up there. Ramona leaves. She changes her hair. She seems really bummed out about the whole thing. And then, as mentioned, we go to the funeral. We get to see everybody's perspectives on Scott dying. I loved, this was one of the other things that I felt like I never really had this question while I was reading the book, like maybe in the back of my mind, but the fact that people die when this happens, when they're fighting.
Yeah.
So to have an actual funeral for Scott that people were attending, and even the line that the guy pushing the broom says,
oh yeah,
there was no show, the bass player was punched to death.
The bass player was punched.
No, Bass, like
No, he played bass.
Big Bass, Billy Bass.
No,
Yeah.
it's bass.
Take me to the river. That's the way the song went. Drop me in the
I
water. He
watched
played the big
first
mouth Billy
episode.
Bass.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Knives' his reaction was unbelievable there, and that was hilarious. The fact that they're like, yeah, he was punched to death, and they kept that going, and I kept waiting for the how are we gonna stop this funeral, or what kind of thing was gonna happen, but.
I love the way they also sort of flipped Knives in this, where she's not desperate to be back with Scott. She moves on the fastest. She's just like, Envy Adams, whoop, his jacket's gone. Mm-hmm. She has a Clash of Demon Head t-shirt. She's just being like a fun teen. And that's just so much lighter and more fun than what I think we were expecting and what the other versions of this have told.
Well, I think what we get here, which is kind of in the book a little bit, but is much more present at this funeral, is everybody is very self-involved. Like, they always call Scott out on that. And they're like, Scott, get out of here. You're so involved in your own life. I don't want to be part of your story. Leave me alone. But everybody else is doing that. They're like, Scott died. How does that affect me? Like, what does that do to me specifically, not to anybody else? And Ramona is the only one that seems to be thinking about things in some sort of realistic way. She doesn't have a lot of dialogue there, but it clearly affected her very deeply.
Yeah, her flashbacks with moments with Scott was really nice. We got inside her head a little bit, which I know Justin loves.
Yeah, I love being inside head, especially freshly dyed hair head, because it's slick. But I agree with you. Like the way that Ramona is the one who's having the quiet sort of melancholy about it is awesome, because I think that puts her closer to Scott than she ever was in the book, and in the movie she's always pulling away. That's what you're like, she's going to pull. And this, it's really like she's getting closer as she misses him and she realizes everyone else just treated him like their own thing. It was about them.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really liked this episode is because she was so bummed out, we didn't hear a lot of dialogue for her. So I didn't get to have to listen to that decrepit old voice from Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Stop with this bit.
Like that.
Come on,
it was
dude.
such a relief. Like, I was worried that you would hear just like the bones dissolving, while she was talking, but they must have cut that out of the show, right, Pete?
Do you think can you hear the other Golden Girls in the background when she's talking?
I did. There was one line where she was like, hey, is this Scott Pilgrim's funeral? And you could hear like, one time in Sicily, in the background,
Wow, this
Shouts
is fun.
to the Estelle Getty heads out there. Pete, you must have loved that.
This is really fun. But I did like the drama at the funeral, the Knives coming in wearing the jacket, drama starting, and then Envy Adams kind of crushes all of that. And it was fun to see the different kind of levels and the different reactions and the perspectives at the funeral. I thought it was really cool that we bounced around and got in people's heads. And I just think it was awesome the way Envy Adams, like the limo pulls up, the red carpet, like all that entrance, the ninja photographers, just so much fun. And then like the music being so great, even ninja photographers are crying. I mean, that's just very touching.
Don't forget the butt shot. Love the butt shot.
Butt shot?
The shot of Envy's butt in her spandex when she's walking up. I thought it was a strange inclusion into the animated show.
It was definitely the way that they drew Envy Adams even more than the way Brian Lee O'Malley drew her in the graphic novel. It felt to me like right out of, oh my God, what was that follow-up book that he did about fashion? Glamorous or something like that?
Yeah. There was the food one, Seconds.
Yeah, not Seconds. The one after that, it was a monthly series that he did was very much like about fashion models in the LA scene. This felt like a character right out of that. How did you guys feel about I Will Remember You? And I will say up front, I was a little conflicted about it. And I was conflicted about it because this property, Scott Pilgrim, does such a great job with original songs. I was bummed to have a non-original song.
Snot Girl was the name of the group.
I thought it was Snot Girl, but I was like, that can't be right.
I loved I Will Remember You. I thought it was a banger. I thought it was a great joke, and then they made it dope. I was like, this is awesome. Great.
It was
really
it was kind of hilarious that she's saying I will, and during the song was like, I don't really remember you. We only dated for a second, so it was kind of funny to sing I Will Remember You. So I thought, for the bit of it, I appreciated what they did.
But another great song on top. That's what I'm saying. Like, she's got to prove that she is a star. At the same time, we're just getting sort of jokes about this song being chosen to be sung, a song famously, treacly, at a funeral where no one really cares that Scott's dead.
Yeah. What else? Oh, there's a quick reference in here. I don't know if you guys know this, but young Neil turns to Ramona and says something about, could you imagine having an ex who became a huge celebrity after you broke up? And that felt like some sort of in-joke I didn't quite get. I looked into it.
Same.
Yeah. And the actor who plays young Neil is a guy named Johnny Simmons who dated Emma Watson for a while, but Emma Watson was already very famous by the time they dated.
Well, maybe that's what the reference is. I don't know. I was like, this is an inside joke, and they do not gesture at all toward what the reference is.
Yeah.
Well, I think it kind of comments on the fact that Ramona has all these insane evil exes that are kind of famous in their own right. And, and then also it kind of brings Scott and Ramona together, I thought.
Oh, do you think it's just a reference to Lucas Lee?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
It's not a real life thing. It's a in-show thing.
Yeah.
Maybe, but we didn't even really get to it.
I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Felt like a meta joke.
So if it was about Ramona, though, it would be Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And let's think about that. She's like 87, 90 at this point, right? So who's around?
She's younger than you are, you fucking
Charlie
old
Chaplin,
fuck.
Maybe.
Yeah. She was one of Chaplin's wives.
Soupy Sales, possibly, something like that. I don't know.
You are so
I'll
old.
Look into it.
Soupy Sales. You are so old.
What a list of old people you have right at your fingertips.
Jesus Christ.
Another little bit that I liked. I liked the elevator having a button marked secret lair at the top.
That was
fun.
The league whole meeting was insane. Just even Gideon's speech about like how he has no fear and he used to wear the T-shirt all the time back in the day was just such a a
great line.
Yeah,
that T-shirt was a lie or so. I forget the actual wording, but man,
I remember when no fear T-shirts were a thing.
Yeah, there still are, right?
Like
you take the sleeves off. It's still very cool. How else do you show how little fear you have?
I think this was Kim Pine's line. It's not a surprise. He was always taking on high-level enemies. I thought that was a fun little video game thing there.
But then the next line was like, yeah, but he was so good. He would always win. And I was like, yeah. I can't believe this is happening either. Why?
Well, what were you going to say, Justin?
I was just going to run through all my fave jokes that we haven't hit yet. The knife stuff where Envy's like, I used to date Scott, and she's like, we didn't all know. I thought was great. And then she's also talking about, you're my favorite band that isn't real. Also
Oh,
very
my God.
fun. Knives gets some good ones. Of course, the coffin change, no doubt about that. No fear shirts, yes. The vegan, when the vegan umbrella
Yep.
is in the rain, and she's like, Roxy's like, I got to stop eating meat. I thought it was great. Put me out of my misery. I want to put you into your misery. Great. Really fun. Roxy just saying, eat me for no reason. Great stuff.
Other twin. That was a fun line too.
Shouts also to Griffin Newman, friend of the show, who did some voices in this.
Yeah, very cool. Speaking of which, Cal Penn was credited in the credits, but they didn't say what he played, which I thought was interesting. I don't know what he possibly voiced. Maybe he was the...
Is he the voiceover? Is he like the narrator?
No, that's Pete's number one, Johnny Stevens or whoever it was.
Yeah.
Stephen Jones. I don't know. Maybe Cal Penn was the janitor or something like that, or maybe it was the lawyer at the end, possibly. Something. Could be. I did want to talk to you guys about the end, though, as we are teeing up the next episode here. What do you think's going on here? Now that, what's your speculation in terms of we got Matthew Patel running the league, Gideon Graves is out, and Ramona thinks she hears Scott in subspace / her dreams. So what's your best speculation about what's happening?
Yeah, he's in the subspace, and he just needs a 1-up so he can get back.
Oh, all right. Simple.
That's right over the plate. I mean, I don't know. This show could go anywhere because we have, like, the league seems to be continuing under the leadership of Matthew Patel. Gideon's gone. There's a Gideon thread we could follow. There's Ramona trying to get Scott back. There's the aftermath, the band. Does young Neil step up like happens in the movie? Like, it could go. They could also just follow Robot 01 for
what? They're not going to be that random, dude. Come on.
Yes, they can do anything. That's what I love about this is they've pushed through the looking glass, and now we're in a world of pure originality.
I keep trying to put it back in the bottle. I keep trying to be like, no, we got to get back on track, but
I know. That's why, like, whenever I come over and squirt all your toothpaste out onto your bathroom sink, you spend so long trying to jam it back in there.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, enjoy all the toothpaste that's on your sink.
If you let them harden, they're like dinner mints.
Exactly. That's exactly right, Pete. That's first off, that's disgusting. The fact that you're saying that with energy is like, what are you, a life hacker?
I can't. The one thing I can't afford is dinner mints. So I'm gonna toothpaste instead.
I stayed over at Pete's house and woke up with a dollop of Crest on my cheek because he put it on as a dinner mint.
Yeah,
that's being a good host is what that is. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up this one?
I'm gonna this next episode. I'm gonna try to watch and just enjoy the ride and not try to feel like I need to force it back into the movie or the comic or whatever, because I feel like there's no reason to do that. So
let me ask you,
looking forward to it.
What is that experience like for you when you're forcing it back? Are you just gripping your TV really hard, or like...
yeah? I'm like, no. How are we gonna then do this? And if you do this, then So yeah, it's a lot of yelling at the screen.
Pete, maybe there's like a Konami code you can press that gets it back.
I do love
up,
the
down,
press start, like title card that you get every time. I love the graphics. I continue to love the music. Even though I was stressed out on this episode, I still thought it was great.
If you do up, down, left, right, BA, select, start, then it actually resets two-player mode.
I think it's AB, select, start.
Well, I guess we'll never know.
If you'd like to support this podcast and all the podcasts we do, patreon.com/comic book club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Facebook and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Scott Pilgrim, Apple, Spotify, Android, or the app of your choice. To subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Comic Book Live on Twitter/X, Comic Book Club Live on TikTok and Instagram, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. And next time, third episode. I think we lost this one again. I think episode 3.
Yeah, it's lucky number 3.
Lucky number 3. We're going to take the
Rule 3
the show the next time. We're going to take off.
It's BAP, so suck it.
I just tried
but it's only one BA. I said 2, but it's
okay, all right, thank you.